What's happening, guys? I'm here to show off a protocol translator that'll hopefully get you communication between OSC, DMX, and MIDI. This application is called Translator. This is something I've been using since day one of working around Touch Designer. I work primarily for a lighting company, but I'm in the video department, so there's a lot of times we want to share responsibilities. I got good friends working on a lighting desk. I'm working out of Resolume and other VJ softwares, so I use OSC. They're using DMX. I'm using MIDI. We want to share parameters. We want to automate each other's systems. How do we do that? This is something I was doing without sort of a user interface. It was kind of all behind the scenes work with a bunch of nodes. It wasn't pretty. It was a pain to troubleshoot if I was trying to find some sort of value conversion from like a 0 to 1 float to a 0 to 255 integer for DMX. So I figured let's just kind of make this streamline, make it a little more user-friendly with the front end, and here we are. So a lot of this is going to be challenging to show an example of, but I'll do my best walking you through using Resolume as kind of a front end for the results. With that being said, let's start with DMX to MIDI. Alright, so we're going to take an incoming DMX channel and we are going to output that as a MIDI channel. This you really can't see, to be honest, without having the MIDI controller in front of you. In these examples, I'm just using it to change the color on my MIDI controllers, but we can kind of see what it looks like in the system. So for this example, let's use MIDI channel 9. That way we can jump through and it'll show you that you can pick and choose. You don't have to do it in order. If at all possible, I always say start at the top and work your way down. Keep things in order, but that's never going to be the perfect scenario or setup for you. But when working on this, it makes it, a little more efficient, but it's not necessary. But to keep things nice and clean, that way you're not cycling through 512 parameters. If you can keep everything at the top, it's just easier for you to troubleshoot when it comes to crunch time. So for this, let's add in a solid color. Let's make this color white. And let's go to our advanced output. And I have a single channel. It goes off of a brightness DMX channel. And let's set that, started set channel 19. Cool, let's use that. If we come over here, we can see that channel 19 is outputting full white, which is going to be 255 in DMX. So we'll hit save. This fader here, I'm going to set the blend mode to 50% add, because anything over 50% on regular add doesn't change anything as far as brightness. Once you hit that 50% threshold, you're already at 100%. So let's do 50. That way 100 is at the top, 0 is at the bottom, and you get a nice in between. Alright, so if we go back into the Translator app, and at the top we have DMX to MIDI, DMX to OSC, MIDI to DMX, MIDI to OSC, OSC to DMX, and OSC to MIDI. This thing's an up, down, backwards, sideways, cross, whatever you want to call it, converter. It'll convert any flavor to any flavor. At the bottom, you can bypass all DMX, MIDI, or OSC. There's a reset that'll reset all of your tables. Save, and for this, let's hop into settings real quick. Right at the top, we have our I/O readouts, and like everything else I do, there's this little question mark here. If you click on that, all these labels will now turn orange. If you click on it, it'll tell you what each one of these parameters will do. So if we want to view our MIDI, we can view MIDI, OSC, and DMX. So the top is your input, as it says. Bottom is output, as it says. So for this example, we're taking DMX coming in on net 0, subnet 14, universe 0, and we're going to be outputting on net 0, subnet 15, universe 0, and we're going to be broadcasting to all devices right there. Below that, we have our MIDI settings. Let's go ahead and set this up. So if we click open on MIDI settings, we'll get this little pop-up. You can choose start from scratch. We'll hit create a new mapping right here. Our in device is going to be my Launch Control XL, and my out device is also going to be my Launch Control XL. Notice it says ID 1.0, ID is 1. So my MIDI in and out device is 1. We have a OSC in port and OSC out address, and our OSC out port. And if we hit clear, this will clear all of our inputs at the top. Alright, so what we're looking for is incoming DMX on subnet 14, universe 0. So if we go back to Arena, we click on our Lumiverse, we have that set to subnet 14, universe 0. There we are. Let's hit save. If we go back to our settings, our DMX, and that was channel 19. You can see right here, channel 19 right now is at 255, which is full. And if we bring that about halfway, we're at 41, 34, because we are getting that. I need to have my license, and there we are. So we are getting DMX in. And for the first one, we want to output that on a MIDI channel. So if we go back to our settings and click MIDI, what you can do is just move a fader value. You can see I'm moving a fader up and down. If I push a button, it will show you the buttons being pushed. If we hit clear, that's actually something not built in yet, is the clear for MIDI. That's coming soon with Touch Designer. For this though, what we can do is just double click that and then hit Control C to copy. Come back here, and it's channel 19 right here is on line 19, so that means line 19 here is channel 19. Paste that right in there. Go to settings and we go to MIDI, and you can see that our MIDI in or MIDI out, I should say, is 127, 0, 12.9. That's honestly kind of a bad example because we're going off luminance. So halfway should be 127, and it's not because of the luminance conversion, but it is 1-for-1 on converting. Alright, moving on. Alright, so if we come back here, let's move to the next one. I'm just going to hit reset so we're working from a fresh slate. DMX to OSC. We already know 19 is outputting, so we'll use line 19. So let's have it where the brightness of this will control the opacity slider of layer 2. So we'll hit shortcuts, OSC, click on layers 2 opacity. We're going to click the top line of OSC. You have to pick one or the other, don't pick both. And we're going to paste that into line 19. Next at the top it says float is 0 or integer is 1. If we go back to Arena and look at that OSC shortcut, it says float right here. So we will want to leave that at the default of 0 because it's float. And then since these next two only deal with integers, we can just ignore those altogether. So if you're dealing with float OSCs, all you have to do is paste the address and you're done. If you're dealing with integers, There's a few more steps you need to do to the left right here. So if we go back to Arena and we raise and lower the brightness here, you can see it is now sending out OSC, and then OSC is controlling that right there. If we bypass OSC and go back, notice it's not doing anything. So we have a successful conversion between DMX and OSC. There we are. Let's go ahead and reset that. Now we're going to go MIDI to DMX. So click on that. Let's come back to our settings and let's use this fader here again. So I'll just double click that, Control C to copy. Cool. And go back to settings. I'm going to go ahead and start at the top. I'm going to paste that in on channel 1, which translates over to DMX channel 1. If I go to my DMX shortcuts, and we already have one assigned here, let's delete that. And I'm going to assign DMX channel 1 to our layer 3 opacity. If we go to our DMX, we need to change our ports here. So if we go to settings, our DMX output is outputting port or subnet 15. So let's do that here as well, subnet 15. That way everything is 1 for 1. And let's see here. You can see we are getting automation right here. And if we go to preferences, DMX 15.1, that's me moving my MIDI controller. And if we go to MIDI, you can see we have nothing selected here at all. And if we go back to the translator, if we go to MIDI, you can see I'm getting MIDI in right here. And if we go to DMX out, you can see we are outputting right there. All right, let's move on. Let's go MIDI to OSC. Let's change something up on this one. Let's go back to our settings, MIDI. I'm going to do a different channel this time. So I got this guy. I'm going to copy him, Control C. We are going to go, let's jump down to like line 20. We'll paste him in here. And this time we're going to modify an integer instead of a float. So let's go to shortcuts, edit OSC, and let's click on like the blend mode of layer 2. We'll select the top address. And if you notice, it says integer 0 through 59. So I will come back here, line 20, paste in that address. This is an integer, so we're going to change this from 0 to 1. Our integer start range is 0, and our end range is 59. I'm not sure what's up with the 0 to 59, but I find that 1 to 59 works better on this particular example, so I'm just going to change that to 1, which starts your low range, your start range. So if we go back to our settings here and we look at our MIDI, you can see we're getting MIDI in on this channel. And if we go to OSC, you can see that we are outputting on that channel 59 to 1. So if we come back here, we are at 0 on my slider, and as I move that up, we are going through all of the integers on that. Preferences, OSC input. You can see tag type is either integer and the integer value. Let's go ahead and reset that, and we will move on to the OSC to DMX. All right, so to output an OSC address, I'm going to go into my OSC shortcuts, And I'm going to click on layer 3's transition. And right now it says output all OSCs. So I can use this address right here as the output, but for fun, let's just click on test. Let's just do a new one. Cool. So we're going to click on layer 3's transition control, and right here it says OSC output. I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to give it a custom name. So we'll just go /test. And now we are outputting /test every time we move that. So coming back into Translator, let's do line 13 will be /test. This is a float because it's a fader 0 to 1, but if it was a integer, we could change that and set the start and end point of the integer, and we'll do that actually once we're done with this this test here. So that's going to output DMX channel 13. What we're going to do now is go to our DMX shortcuts, and we're going to make layer 1 transition control channel 13. So now when we move layer 3 transition control, it's going to output the word test, or the address test, and then that's going to get converted to DMX 13. And you can see here we have control. So let's go into our OSC again, and we're going to delete that, and we're going to click on layer 3 transition control, which is an integer. We're going to turn this to test as the address. Go back into our Translator app, make this an integer from 1 to 59. And now if we come back and change this to full white, that should be full on your transition bar. And if we set this to the first one, it'll be off. And if we go about halfway in, which are things like Luma, we're about halfway in on our OSC to DMX. Alright, and we're going to hit reset. Finally, we have OSC to MIDI. And again, this is going to be hard to show without actually having the MIDI controller in front, but we will get through this. We will go /test. We know this is an integer from 1 to 59. We're going to go to settings, and we're going to raise up a value. We're going to copy and paste that in right here. And now if we go to settings and we look at OSC coming in, we can see test is value 6, and that should be outputting to MIDI right here. And if we bump that all the way up to white, which is the last one, should now be 127. So we are getting communication there as well. The way the MIDI channels work is CH is for the channel of the device, and then N is for the note, or if it's a controller, it's CTRL, and then the value for the CC is that. You can type it in manually. I personally just find it easier to push something and then just copy and paste it. That way you get it right. Leave everything set to null. The way I have this set up is anything that says null on it gets completely ignored and bypassed. If you leave these blank instead, they will be processed, and that takes up more processing performance from your system. So if it's not going to be used, just leave it set to null and you should be fine. Alright guys, that should be everything. I hope this helps you out in your day-to-day tasks working with other aspects of the production world. If there's any questions or comments, as always, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks guys.